The loudest piece of evidence cited across independent media channels linking Meghan Markle to the Epstein-adjacent scandal network is the December 2021 David Boies statement, quoted, clipped, shared, and framed as something close to a smoking gun, a senior attorney publicly naming the Duchess of Sussex as a potential deposition target in a sexual assault case tied to Prince Andrew and the Epstein network. What those channels consistently omit is the other half of the same record, and that omission is where the real story lives. Boies, speaking directly to the Daily Beast on December 21, 2021, was explicit. She is one of a number of people that we are considering deposing. We only have between 10 and 12 depositions that we can take. The framing that Meghan was uniquely or specifically targeted requires ignoring what came immediately after. Because when asked if Prince Harry might also be a deposition subject, Boies confirmed he would also be available, as he is in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. courts, adding that his team would not depose both Harry and Meghan because there were not enough deposition slots to do so. Read without selective editing, Boies wasn't building a case against Meghan Markle. He was narrowing a list that included her husband, his uncle's ex-wife, and potentially his father, choosing between them based on logistics and deposition limits, and the stated reasons he gave are equally worth examining in full, because he told Fox News his team wanted depositions of people who knew Prince Andrew, were members of his inner circle at various times, and who might have either knowledge themselves or knowledge about people who would have knowledge, and crucially, he added that because of her character and her interest in combating abusive behavior, Meghan would be a credible witness, and that if she had information, he believed she would be honest and forthcoming in testifying about it, which is the part of the Boies record that has been almost entirely scrubbed from independent media coverage because the attorney was not hinting at her involvement in wrongdoing. He was, in plain terms, praising her integrity. The settlement timeline confirms the rest. In 2022, Giuffre settled her civil lawsuit against Prince Andrew for a reported £12 million without any admission of liability from the prince. No depositions were taken. Meghan Markle was never subpoenaed, never deposed, never contacted by the legal team beyond those exploratory public statements. On the Burkle thread, Ron Burkle's name was found in Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book and on Epstein's private jet log, and he took what were described as humanitarian trips to Africa with Bill Clinton on Epstein's private Boeing 727, and court documents released in January 2024 stated that Burkle has knowledge of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein's sexual trafficking conduct, though Burkle has not been charged in connection with the Epstein case, and the timeline that independent media builds around his Soho House ownership collapses under scrutiny because Burkle only acquired Soho House in 2014 after the club had already been operating in Toronto for years before Meghan ever walked through its doors. No reporting in any credible outlet connects Burkle personally to Meghan Markle in any capacity. Then there are the January 2026 files, cited repeatedly as the catalyst that drove the Yacht allegations back into mainstream focus, with what those channels consistently failing to mention being what came from the DOJ's own review, because in July 2025, the U.S. Department of Justice released a memo concluding that no client list existed in the Epstein files, that no credible evidence supported claims Epstein had blackmailed prominent individuals, and that his death was a suicide. A memo directly relevant to every claim built around the idea that Epstein possessed leverage over members of the elite social networks that overlapped with Meghan's pre-Harry years. And then there is Virginia Giuffre, whose death is invoked heavily across this narrative, but whose fuller story is more specific and more devastating than the shorthand allows, because Giuffre died by suicide at her home in Neergaby, Western Australia, on April 25, 2025, aged 41, at a time when she had been in a custody battle for her 3 children, had publicly stated her husband had physically abused her for years, and had been in a near-fatal car accident just weeks before her death. And the posthumous memoir she completed, legally vetted by Alfred A. Knopf and published in October 2025, in which she wrote of being lent out to scores of wealthy, powerful people, described being choked, beaten, and bloodied, and alleged she was raped by an unidentified prime minister, contains no reference to Meghan Markle.
Strip away the fabricated photos, the misidentified faces, the Russian state television posts that Snopes debunked, and the conflation of Boies' litigation strategy with allegations of personal wrongdoing, and what remains is this. The Boies statement, which is the closest thing to an institutional acknowledgement of Meghan's proximity to the Andrew scandal, is a statement about her potential knowledge of her husband's uncle's behavior, made by a lawyer who also considered deposing her husband, praised her honesty, and never followed through because the case settled before discovery began. And what the public record does not contain, despite years of effort from dozens of independent researchers and the pressure of mainstream legitimacy now provided by The Spectator, is a single verified document, testimony, flight log entry, or deposition placing Meghan Markle inside the Epstein network. And the silence around specific denials may be legal strategy, PR calculation, or simple exhaustion, but what it is not on the available evidence is a confession.